Hello there.
What if the younglings killed Anakin?
Everybody in the Jedi Order knew Anakin's greatest weakness was sand. And for years, everybody knew Anakin wanted to kill the younglings. So they ordered all the younglings to carry a pouch of sand. During the events of Order 66, the younglings asked Anakin for help when he came, but Anakin only stuck out his lightsaber ready to kill them, and the younglings knew this was the time to use sand. This youngling said, "Master Skywalker," and then he showed his pouch of sand and threw it in Anakin's eyes. Anakin went to the floor and started screaming. This pain was worse than when Dooku cut off his arm. Conveniently, Anakin dropped his lightsaber, and this youngling picked it up and killed Anakin. But something happened to this youngling. He struck Anakin down in anger, and you know what that means. This youngling fell to the dark side, and he used Anakin's lightsaber and killed all the younglings in the room. This youngling grew so strong in the Force that he now rivaled Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones. The youngling knew there were too many Jedi in the temple, so he had to exit. Since there were so many Jedi in the temple and the clones would be distracted with them, they would never notice this small youngling. So he escaped undetected. A few hours later, Obi-Wan and Yoda went through the security recordings, and they saw what happened. They saw the youngling kill Anakin and kill all the other younglings. Obi-Wan was furious. Obi-Wan had a new mission, and that mission was to kill the youngling who killed Anakin. After escaping the Jedi Temple, the youngling Sith had one goal: be the ultimate Sith Lord, and he knew there was a person in charge of Master Skywalker because he felt a darker presence in the Force. Obi-Wan wanted to find this youngling, and he wanted him dead, but he didn't know where the youngling was. Obi-Wan asked Yoda for help, but Yoda was too busy having death sticks. But Yoda did tell him that the Sith Lord was Palpatine because it was obvious. So Obi-Wan guessed that the youngling would be going to kill Palpatine. And Obi-Wan was right. This crazy youngling Sith wanted to kill Palpatine. But the youngling knew he needed help. He knew he wasn't strong enough to defeat the Dark Lord of the Sith. This youngling knew that Darth Maul was alive. The thing is, he didn't know where Darth Maul was. He would have to find him. This youngling knew that he would also need an army, because the clones would be protecting Palpatine. But first he needed Darth Maul, so he went to look for him. This youngling was crazy, but he was smart. Obi-Wan underestimated this youngling. He thought the youngling would just go to Palpatine's office right away. So that's where Obi-Wan went. Palpatine knew Anakin died. He couldn't sense his presence in the Force, and he sensed a darker presence. He also sensed Obi-Wan. Palpatine knew that Obi-Wan would want to kill him, or so he thought. He wanted to kill Kenobi personally, so he told all his clones to get out of the way and let Obi-Wan come to him. And that's what they did. Meanwhile, the youngling was still trying to find Darth Maul. The youngling didn't expect Maul to be on Mandalore because Maul was driven away from Mandalore by Palpatine, actually captured by Palpatine. The youngling didn't know that he was captured by Ahsoka Tano and had just escaped and was on Mandalore right now. The youngling couldn't find Maul anywhere, so he decided to look on Mandalore. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan just arrived in Palpatine's office, and he thought it was a trap because there were no clones, and of course he was right. He saw Palpatine, and Palpatine just electrocuted him. Obi-Wan was on the ground, in pain, but Obi-Wan wouldn't lose that easily. He quickly got up and force-pushed Palpatine into the wall. Palpatine, who was furious, got his crimson red blade out and attacked Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was shocked on how fast Palpatine was because he was so old, and he doubted whether he could win this fight or not. Actually, he knew he couldn't win, but he had a small hope. And, of course, he lost because Palpatine being Palpatine beat Obi-Wan. But Palpatine realized that he couldn't kill Obi-Wan. He needed information. Who survived the Purge, and who was this dark presence in the Force. So he decided to hold Obi-Wan and torture him for information. Meanwhile, the younglings snuck past all the Mandalorians and met Maul and told Maul his plan. He also asked Maul if he could train him in the ways of the Force. Maul just laughed at him and told his guards to kill this youngling. But the youngling just laughed and took Anakin's lightsaber and killed every single one of them. I mean, Maul only sent like 5 of them because he was a youngling, but this impressed Maul. So he decided to test him in a 1v1 duel. When they started sparring, Maul saw his potential. He wasn't as powerful as him, but he was powerful enough to take down Palpatine with him. He was about 80% of Maul, and he could be more powerful with the right training. He could be more powerful than full potential Anakin. Maul knew he had enough allies so he could cause a temporary distraction for the clones, so he could kill Palpatine with the youngling. Obi-Wan was in a cell, and Palpatine was torturing him, asking him for names. Palpatine wanted to know who survived the purge. Obi-Wan wouldn't speak. Palpatine sensed a great disturbance in the Force, so he asked Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan said it was a youngling. But Palpatine thought he was joking, so he kept torturing him. But Obi-Wan was right. It was a youngling, and he was with Darth Maul and his army. They were heading for Coruscant. While they were waiting to go to Coruscant, the youngling was trading with Maul. And soon, they arrived on Coruscant. As soon as they got off their ship, they were greeted by clones, which they easily disposed of. Obi-Wan sensed the dark presence in the Force. He knew that the youngling came, and he was not alone. Palpatine could also sense the dark presence in the Force. He knew the youngling came. And he knew that Darth Maul also came. He was worried. He knew he couldn't take Darth Maul and the youngling together. There was only one option. He hated this option, but he wanted to live, and he didn't want to be overthrown by a youngling. So, he released Obi-Wan from his cell. Obi-Wan didn't have a lightsaber, but he decided to punch Sidious. But before he could, Sidious electrocuted him with Force lightning. And he told him, "I can't take this youngling alone. He's with Darth Maul. I need your help." Obi-Wan didn't want to do this, and he knew that Yoda would not like this either. Speaking of Yoda, he was still having death sticks. Back to Obi-Wan. He knew he had 2 choices. 1, get killed and let Sidious die and let the youngling rule the galaxy with Darth Maul. Or 2, team up with Sidious and maybe defeat the youngling and Darth Maul, and his fate would be decided later. So he chose the second option. So Sidious released Obi-Wan, and his plans were to kill him later. Soon the youngling and Darth Maul came, and they force-choked Palpatine's guards. This youngling's hatred was fueling him. He was now more powerful than Revenge of the Sith Anakin. They soon saw Sidious and Obi-Wan after taking down all of Sidious's guards. And Darth Maul immediately started running to Obi-Wan to fight him, leaving the youngling and Sidious. Sidious just laughed at the youngling before shooting Force lightning, which the youngling quickly deflected with Anakin's lightsaber. Sidious was impressed for a kid that age to deflect Force lightning like that. So Sidious pulled out his crimson red blade and started to attack the youngling. Obi-Wan and Maul started fighting, and they were equally skilled at this point. Well, I mean, Obi-Wan would probably have upper hand, but he was just tortured, so... Anyway, Maul brought up every single pain in his life, and they all started with Kenobi. If it wasn't for Kenobi, his master would not have abandoned him, and if it was not for Kenobi, then Savage Opress wouldn't have died, and same with Mother Talzin. But Obi-Wan was fighting for Anakin. He wasn't fighting because he hated Maul. Obi-Wan stopped for a second. He didn't have too much time, so he used his Master Qui-Gon stance to trick Maul. Maul fell for the trick, and when he went to strike down Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan quickly changed back to his original form and killed Maul. Meanwhile, the youngling was still fighting Sidious. The lightsaber was way too big for him. Sidious used that as an advantage, and he quickly broke the youngling's lightsaber. The youngling was on his knees, and he only had one thing, sand. And he didn't have too much sand. The youngling thought that the same trick that he did on Anakin would work on Sidious because all Sith Lords hate sand. So he threw the sand in Sidious's eyes. Sidious was on his knees. The youngling quickly took his lightsaber and struck Sidious down. Obi-Wan was so exhausted from all the torture and fighting Maul that he fainted. The youngling thought this would be an advantage and was about to strike Obi-Wan down when a lightsaber blocked him. It was Yoda. Because of the death sticks, Yoda was more powerful than ever, but I don't recommend using them. Anyway, he started the duel with the youngling. It was called Duel the Shorties. Yoda was moving so fast the youngling could barely dodge his attacks. And soon Yoda broke his lightsaber. The youngling was out of sand and started pleading, saying, "Master Yoda." But before he could say anything else, Yoda used the Force to push him out of the window.